Support Pro Play Games on Patreon.
Hey guys, Adrian here for PPG, and in this video I'm gonna be going over the World Championship format since we just kind of, I guess, figure out what the balance is gonna be, and kind of how different decks that are seen play in the TCG got hit, and if they will see play, or I guess my opinion if they will see play, how they will see play, and some of the more powerful decks I think that are in this format. The way that the World Championship works is that there's a combined Banlist between TCG and OCG, so it can make for some different deck building for both formats. Also, since the OCG won't be playing with like all of the product that they have, since we're always like a little bit behind, both having different formats. And I'm kind of gonna go over the hits of, I guess, the most important decks right now. The first one that we have is Branded. What they did to Branded is that they limited Branded Fusion, Branded Opening, the Bestial Rebellion, the Bestial Magnum, Bestial Druistorm, Bestial Baldrake, and they banned Branded Expulsion and Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Personally, I probably wouldn't play this deck because just with the one Branded Fusion, the play seemed a little bit too fragile. And I guess you would be forced to run more normal summons, which can make it so you lose to hand traps a little bit more. And with just the one opening, it means that like the normal summons that you run are kind of like whatever play you start with is the play that you're gonna end up with, and then you're forced to play like Fusion Substitute, and then it's just kind of like I don't know. It feels a little bit too fragile into like a lot of decks, and although I'll go into it a little bit later down the line because you'll see with some of the other hits, there's not as much graveyard hate in this format as there may be like in the current TCG, but it's still I feel like not warranted to play this deck. And also the Branded Expulsion hurts the Puppet Block combo, which I guess we already didn't have in the TCG. Obviously with the 3 Branded Fusion and the 3 Branded Opening and then all the Bestials, it's a lot more consistent, and just having to rely on the Sanctifier to do the Puppet Lock combo, it's a little bit complicated in my opinion. I guess it's a little bit too fragile. And obviously the Dragoon hit's very important because with the new cards from Battles of Legends, there was a lot of plays that would go into Dragoon into your opponent's turn as a form of his follow-up, and or even extenders, and that's all like clearly dead with the Dragoon ban. It's also like it was a problem card in the deck that some decks had a lot of issues outing, and now that that's no longer in the deck, it's a little bit rough for the deck because even if you don't do the Puppet Lock, the endboard's not going to be as good. But yeah, it just seems too fragile, and I feel like into a tournament of this caliber, I probably wouldn't play something that's that fragile. Moving forward with Purreley, they limited Sleepy Memory and Delicious Memory, and Zeus is also limited. These are some of the hits. I guess we have the one that's supposed to limited in the TCG, and it makes the Noir play a little bit more inconsistent. Maybe not necessarily like the power level of the deck, although I guess you can see it because as a power level hit, because the less you get into Noir, the deck's a little bit worse, so it can affect it in that way. But also hitting the spell so that you don't draw as much, and the Zeus can impact it, since that was a deck that would just like turbo out like a bunch of materials and then go into Zeus and control the board with that, because the Zeus that can activate like 3-4 times. It's just crazy, honestly. I don't know if I would like. I feel like there's an argument to play the deck going second still, as some people have been doing it in the TCG, but it seems I feel like there's just better decks in the format. Looking into it, this is not necessarily a bad deck. It's just a little bit too inconsistent, I guess, and maybe even just there's just better options if you have like or you want to do a similar play style. Following with Spright, I want to do kind of Spright and Runick together, kind of, because they've been playing both the engines together a lot in the TCG, and they kind of lose to similar cards. So I just wanted to do like an all-encompassing for both. But for Spright, they limited Spright Jet, Spright Blue, and Spright Starter, and they banned Run and Toad, Spright Elf, and Kashtira Fenrir, which a lot of Spright decks were running. So I would kind of take that as a Spright hit to a certain extent, since it was a form of free interruption that they had, and even served as an extender to go into Sprint, since you just needed the level 2 on top of that. And for Runick, they limited Runick Fountain and Skill Drain. And to be honest, like the decks didn't really suffer in terms of power level, other than maybe the Fenrir hit. But other than that, they can still do like all the plays with the Melfies, and even for pure Spright, I guess I want to do first. They can still do all the plays with the Melfies and Melfie Spright, even Adventure Spright, and then into Spright, they run like a little bit of a smaller Spright engine, a lot more starters that came into Gigantic. The issue that I see with this is that the deck's choke points are a little bit more apparent because you're gonna have to run more non-engine level 2 extenders or starters, and it's just kind of that you're forced to run less of a Spright engine, which can hurt the deck. Especially now that if they get rid of one of your blues, or they hand trap the blue, you can't get it back, and that charge can kill your turn. So as a pure build, it seems really fragile, and I don't think it'll see play. And at least I personally don't see why it would. But with the Runick cards, honestly, it still seems fine. The Fountain being limited, it definitely hurts. I believe it hurts the stun build that was seen playing the OCG a lot more than it does the builds that we've been seeing in the TCG, since it's always been wanted, but maybe not. I guess you always wanted the second Fountain, but it doesn't necessarily come up all the time, depending on the removal. And yeah, I mean, the deck still seems completely fine, because even the Evil Twin or the for higher versions, being a little bit more explosive, but focusing on the Evil Twin, I guess, the deck already just ran the one jet and the one blue, maybe 2 and 1 or like different ratios, but you only needed those for the combo, and you had protection too. So it's like I don't know, the deck already ran a pretty small Spright ratio, so it doesn't necessarily hurt it as much, especially if you can compensate by running more Runick spells, because the deck did really well with that, or maybe just more Evil Twin cards. The Runick Stun version gets hurt a lot more because they also limited skill drain, and I don't think that would see play. But the Evil Twin Runick Spright seems like you could see some play in the format, especially since the Runick cards are really strong control engine or archetype, I guess you can say. And unless they get rid of the Fountain, you still have draws for days. Going to Kashtira, deck that ran like TCG and OCG for a pretty decent amount of time. They limited Kashtira Unicorn, Pressured Planet Wraith Soth, Kashtira Ricehard, Pot of Prosperity, and they banned Diablosis and Fenrir. And also, I guess I wanted to throw in that they semi-limited Dimension Shifter. The Dimension Shifter, obviously, not maybe like a huge hit for the deck. It's just kind of like a hand trap that it was very common in the deck, so I wanted to throw it in there because it's a piece of graveyard hit that was ran in that. But the Diablosis hit, obviously. We've been playing under this for a decent amount of time, so that shouldn't change that much. We just, I guess, lost the log 5 combo, but we lost that last format, so that isn't too relevant. But the limiting of Unicorn and the Planet and the Ariser definitely hurts. Unicorn, obviously, a really good starter, so that deck loses consistency. The Planet, obviously, hit of consistency, and the Pop also came up. Limit of Ariser makes it so that if they rip it with the Unicorn or they get rid of it, it's harder to get back. And to finish that off, with the limits, the Pot of Prosperity, a lot of times you would banish 6 from your extra deck. Things like Infinity Track Goliath or Other Entity Entis, or all these cards that when sent to the graveyard can serve as interaction when they out your Ricehard. The Goliath obviously making it so that it's not it cannot be destroyed, and make it kind of like a Towers type of card that kept attaching. So there's obviously the Kashtira Fenrir ban that kind of kills the deck in my opinion. And I don't believe that this will see play. I would hope not. That the issues that arise are, it's still a very, very strong card. But as a pure deck, it will definitely not see play. At least in my opinion, it won't. Going into Tearlaments, it was the deck that I see hit the most in the list that I have. They limited Tearlaments Havness, Shiren, Merly, and Rhinoheart, as well as limited Agito, Kelbeck, Modora, Keldon, and Planet. And they banned Kid Kalos, Chaos, Rule, and Global. Tearlaments is kind of similarly hit in the TCG, and it hasn't really been doing all that much since the last ban list. We have the 3 planets still, so they're even more hit for this world's ban list. And although there's not that much graveyard hate in the format, with all the Kashtira hits, it can be kind of hard to play it. But even in the OCG, it has been seeing a decent amount of play but they're in Rescue Ace format, so I don't know how it will do into the Worlds format. Seeing as there's a lot of decks that can deal with what Tearlaments can do fairly well. It's also just very inconsistent. A lot of the plays rely on having good mills still, and I wouldn't feel comfortable running a deck like this where the consistency has been hit so much and the explosiveness of the deck has been hit so much that it may not necessarily. It's also like a glass cannon, I guess, is what I should be saying. So it could be high risk, high reward, but I don't feel that for a tournament for this caliber, you want like a deck that's just going to be like good all around. Or if you want to go for high risk, high reward, there's I think better decks. For super heavy, they limited Soul Piercer, semi-limited Motorbike. They banned Soulbreaker Armor and Scarecrow. And I just feel like there's better options if you want to play a combo deck in the format that I'll get into later. And it's hasn't really seen play in the TCG when they just banned the Scarecrow. So I don't know if I would even consider the possibility of it seeing play in the Worlds format. And yeah, I just think there's better options all around in the generation they should be playing this unless I'm missing some sort of combo line that I guess I've been seeing under the radar play and I'm not aware of. Going on with Dragon Link, they limited all the Bestials. And then Wire Ruster, Collapse Serpent, Striker Dragon Band, Chaos Ruler. For the most part, I mean, it's pretty similar to how the TCG was playing it. The Bestials can hurt, but I guess that was mostly for the Bestial control build of the deck. But the deck is realistically fine. Seems pretty strong. You can do the Borderland or the Seal Pass, depending if you want to play like a more control mid-range strategy or a combo build. And yeah, I guess we would just have to see what people that want to play the deck want to do with the deck going into the specific format. But it seems fine. There's nothing really that got a crazy hit, I guess. Then lastly, Floowandereeze. There's they limited the Magnificent Map, Prosperity, semi-limited Shifter, and the banned Statue of Stormwinds. There's been I guess a change in how the deck plays. Before it was more of a stun build, and now we've seen a lot of success with I guess still some stun elements to the deck. We're kind of running the Snarl. Some people are even running Scary Seas, although I played the deck for a really long time in the TCG and I didn't run that card and did fairly well with it. I think that the map hit, the Prosperity hit, I mean overall, it's just consistency hits. And the deck does tend to break a decent amount, and this can include it, but as long as the deck can still draw its engine, it's still an insane resource loop with all the small birds. And if you expect a link heavy format with I guess Dragon Link, running Shifter and even Empen is just like a powerhouse of a card, negating all the link effects, or I guess not letting them activate either. So there's I feel like there's some argument for Floowandereeze to see some play in the format, especially since it's just a very good mid-range strategy. Some other notable hits, I guess, banned still Maxi, Red Reed with a pointer, and Griffin Rider's also banned, so any adventure decks are kind of hindered by that. You can still run the Illegal Knight to do the bounce play, but it's obviously not as good as the negate. Then Limited, Gamma, Circular, Prosperity, Skill Drain. Already talked about most of those. Athmec taking a hit there. And semi-limited, Dimension Shifter, Emergency Teleport, and Lightning Storm, which I don't know. I feel like Punk could have seen some play, and like Teleport at 2 is not that crazy of a consistency hit. If you look at it statistically, it doesn't represent that much. So if people were to play that deck, I guess it doesn't really warrant it. Not to, because of you have 2 emergency teleports and the Shifter hits, I guess will allow some graveyard decks to play. But still, it's a card and it's a 2, not a 3, so it's the same thing. Like the percent chance of you opening it, I guess, changes it not that much. And if you're playing a deck that can run it, you might as well. I think some good picks are, Labrynth pretty much didn't get hit at all, other than the skill drain. But a lot of people were choosing to go for more hand trap builds with the furniture, and even some Spright builds. But I guess that got kind of hurt by the hurts to Spright. So there's an argument to be made for Labrynth for sure. It's a very, very good control deck, even without skill drain. There's, even if you wanted to go for the Floodgate build, there's still a lot of cards that you can run in that deck. So I would definitely not count it out. I think it's a very, very strong pick. think if you expect a monster heavy format, Rikka is a really good pick. I mean, it went completely unhit as far as I can tell, and with some of the graveyard hate hits and some of the Runick hits, I guess it can definitely see some play. So some matchups that it had issues with got hurt, such as Kashtira. Even though you could play through a Rise Art, it was made hard. And Purreley, same thing. It's like you can out the Noir fairly easily with the tribute effects for cost. But yeah, I think that's a very good deck. Probably one of the better combo decks of the format, as far as I can tell. Sky Striker seems fine too. I mean, just spell decks and mid range decks have done fairly well in these tournaments in the past. Mannadium also, I believe, is completely unhit, and I mean, it's been doing fine as a rogue deck in the TCG, and some of the Envors that they can put out are really good. It can be fragile. Sometimes if you hit the Link 1 Scare Claw, it can end their turn. Or if you get rid of their normal summon with maybe a Runick spell or a tribute effect. But the deck, I mean, the deck's still fine if you want to play a combo deck. Vanquish Soul seems really good too. It's a very good mid-range strategy into the format. I guess into monster heavy format, it's very good. It can struggle with some removal, but the tagging out effects also help it a lot. Traptrix seems fine. There's a lot of mid-range and control decks that I feel like would do really well in the format. And they usually play, I guess, trap and spell cards, so there can be some hate to that. But the semi-limit of Lightning Storm also hinders that a little bit, although not that much. Since Labrynth has seen some decent play in the format, in the TCG. And then I guess if you expect more graveyard decks, Exosister can see play, but it hasn't seen that much play in the TCG, and it would be, I guess, a fairly similar format. It just won the YCS, but it's not like a rampant deck, I guess, and it would have to take a good pilot. Dark World seems like an interesting choice. As far as I can tell, it's a fairly strong combo deck, and with the Shifter hit, it can maybe people will consider not playing as much graveyard hate, and then Dark World can find a place. Although I guess it would also be kind of like a high risk high reward. Although we saw at the beginning of last format and throughout some very high skilled players playing it at the YCS level, and maybe not necessarily doing really well with it, but it shows that people have faith in that deck, and maybe you can see some play. Swordsoul seems interesting too. Like I said, there's a lot of mid-range strategies that I think can do well. It's maybe also you can even consider like a low floor combo deck, since the combos are pretty linear. But I mean, it's pretty strong. It ran the format, I believe, like 1 year ago almost in the TCG with Branded, and Branded being hit and Swordsoul not as much. Can definitely see some play. These are some, I guess, my opinions on some of the cards and reaction to the ban list and what I think about it. Make sure to check out the TCG Player affiliate link. Make sure to check out the Patreon where I do some exclusive content for Yu-Gi-Oh! And leave some comments of any content you want to see, and make sure to like and subscribe.